Hello and welcome to this lecture, and this is going to be an interesting lecture wherein we will learn about the Matplotlib, which is a plotting library for Python. And Matplotlib is actually used along with NumPy to provide an environment like MATLAB, which can be used to plot or visualize the data or numerical data in form of a graph or in form of a plot. Now conventionally this package is actually imported into Python by typing in from matplotlib import pyplot as plt. Now pyplot is actually a function which helps us to plot a 2D data. Now even before we jump into how we could plot a particular thing on our screen, let's first try to understand how things are actually plotted using pyplot. So if you know the equation of a straight line, the equation of a straight line looks something like y equals mx plus c. So if you actually learn mathematics, I hope you have learned this thing as well, where m is actually the slope of the line, x and y are the variables, and c is actually your constant. So this is the kind of equation or mathematical equation, and this equation is actually called as the equation of a straight line. And here what we actually do is that we give it some kind of slope and we give it some kind of values in terms of x and y, and those values can actually be plotted inside a particular chart on a x and y axis. So in this lecture we are going to try to do the same. We are actually going to learn how to use the matplot library and how that could be used to plot a straight line on a XY graph. So what we will do first is that we will learn how to do that. So Matplotlib is actually a library which is used in combination with NumPy. So you obviously need to use a NumPy along with this. So first we will type in import NumPy as np. And if you're not from a mathematical background and if you don't understand equation of a straight line, that's absolutely fine, and you might find this lecture a little bit confusing, but that's actually okay. So I will also go ahead and try to explain you guys a little bit about it. So let's see if you guys could be able to understand. So after importing NumPy, you also need to import the pyplot from matplotlib. So we'll type in from matplotlib import, and that's going to be pyplot, and we will import this as plt. And now what we want to do is that we want to have arrays or numbers or the values of x. So we will type in x equals, that is we are basically creating an array of x, so that's going to be np dot arrange, and let's say we want these array elements from the range 1 to 11. And now we will use a mathematical equation for a straight line. So let's say that's going to y equals 2 multiplied by x plus, let's say, 5. So that's actually y equals mx plus c. So now what's actually going to happen is that it's going to have a combination of xy values. That means if you actually take the value of x as 2, so that value is going to be substituted over here. So 2 multiplied by 2 is 4, plus 5 is going to be equal to 9. So for the x value of 2, you are going to have a corresponding y value of 9. And similarly, if you take x as 3, you will have 2 multiplied by 3, which is 6, plus 5 is 11. So for every x equal 3, you are going to have y equal 11, and those values are going to be plotted on the xy axis. So now let's go ahead, and once we have this equation, let's go ahead and set a few properties for this plt over here. So the first thing is that you actually want to set the title for your graph. So that's going to be, let's say, plt.title. And in here, let's specify the title as, let's say, this is the title. And also you need to specify the x and the y label. So that's going to be that's going to be x label. And let's say that's going to be, let's say, this is x label. And for the y, let's say plt.y label. And let's say this thing says this is y label. And after that, let's also type in plt.plot to actually plot those lines. And to this plt.plot, you only need to specify the values for x and y. And once you do that, that would be fine. And finally, to show up the plot, you need to type in plt.show. So once this thing is done, you could run the code, and hopefully this thing should run fine. So I'm going to quickly click this run button. and it's actually going to take a while. Okay, so as you could see, now we have the values for this particular line, and as you could see, the line is plotted. So the equation of this line is going to be y equals 2x plus 5, and as you could see, this thing right here is the x-axis and this thing right here is the y-axis. So as you could see, where x is actually equal to 2, so if you go straight from here, so the value is approximately in between 8 and 10. So when you substitute x equals 2, so that's actually going to be 4 plus 5, and that's actually going to be 9. So the value of 9 is right over here, if you could notice. So this is how the line is actually plotted. So for every value of x, you are going to have a corresponding value of y. So what you could do is that if you could go ahead and alter these values as well. So if you try to increase the slope of this thing, so if you substitute 2 with 4, and when you run this code, as you could see, the slope actually increased over here because you have increased the slope over here, and that is how this thing actually works. So this was a basic example, and even if you don't understand this mathematical equation, that's quite okay. I just actually took this example in order to show you guys how a particular thing is plotted onto a map by using the Matplotlib library in Python along with the combination of NumPy. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Thank you.